what advice have you got for everyone out there to make themselves 1% better every day?
Thank you for the question. I've been thinking about it and I've got copious notes, but reflecting this afternoon, I came down to this one as the king killer, and that is gratitude never goes out of fashion. So as we stumble through each day through life and things come to us which fascinate us, which is another way of saying frustrate us, it's something's trying to teach you something, you know, when you have those moments. And if you can appreciate that in the moment, you're going to actually progress. You're going to move forward in that teachable moment. And you've got to have gratitude. Gratitude's the key. Of course, the opposite of that is judgment. If you're judging the other party, the other whatever it is, it's normally somebody that's done something or doing something to you, it might be. Or the situation in the world, you know, don't watch the news. That's not good for gratitude. And there's three things to learn in that teachable moment: something about yourself, something about others, and something about strategy or approaches. And probably the best one out of that three is learning something about yourself, because whatever it is that you're noticing, whatever trait someone's displaying which is maybe ticking you off, you're only recognising it because it's in you. That's the only reason. Because if that really wasn't in you, or you'd totally accept that trait and own that trait, it wouldn't bother you, it wouldn't frustrate you. So right in that moment, you're getting a reflection of yourself. And that's hard news.
Yeah, we've kicked off. That's kicked off real deep. This is good.
We've kicked off with a win.
This is good. That's hard news to take. And I'm still very much a work in progress. I've just told you that bit of, great theory sounds fantastic. Putting it in practice is really, really difficult. But if that's the process you can use day after day, if you find one thing a day which would normally make you swear, but you turn it into a learning experience about yourself, about the trait and how you do that too, or have done that as well, and own that trait, that 1% better will stack up. And I bought Atomic Habits with me by James Clear, and this is where this 1% reference, I don't know if that's where you guys get it from, but this guy talks about it in this book. There's a little graph in here you guys can see. And it says that if you do this 1% every day, the exponential improvement is 37 times in a year, better than where you were. So that's a great, I love you guys and your 1%, but that's actually what will happen if you can apply it consistently.
It's like putting money in the bank.
100%.
Yeah. And full transparency.
37%. Can we do that?
I wish. That would be all right.
We need to speak to a money guy.
Yeah, well, we had him on a couple of weeks ago. But Atomic Habits, 100%. Yeah. I have, I won't say read because I don't do good at reading, but I don't do very well at speaking either, apparently. But I've listened to it on Audible. Really great book. I honestly don't remember a lot from it, or I probably do, but I don't remember whether or not it's from that specific book. But the one thing that I really did remember and resonate with is that 1% rule, because I think that 1% change every single day is just something that is so achievable. It's not this big, massive thing where you say, you need to go on this big, massive journey to really change your life. It's this one small little thing that you can do, and as you said, it can lead to a 37% change overall in your life over the course of a year.
37 times.
37 times, sorry.
So that's 370%.
Yeah, 370%, massive, very big.
It's it goes back to that consistent application of small effort to affect a big change, and how do you steer an aircraft carrier slowly?
To segue, next question is, Martin, who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do for a crust?
Okay, so I trained as a civil engineer in Adelaide. So, and I've had a career building stuff, including a lot of stuff up here on the northwest coast. I've now do project management type work for people, but I also like to do work in the not-for-profit space. So when I was in my mid-40s, I sort of had some time to reflect. I'm 53, everybody, just in case you don't realise just how old I am. And in that time, I got to have a big, serious look about what it's all for. I'd had some really good success in my career and had achieved my boyhood aim at 42, which was to take my whole family skiing in Canada. And that had all been kicked off by, 42, I think I was, 42, 43. And I went, oh my God, what happens now? Do I get on the hamster wheel and instead of going for 4 weeks, I go for 6 weeks? And I just thought, yeah, that's a hamster wheel I'm not going to get on. There's got to be a different thing now. And so that was almost 10 years, well, about 10 years ago. So I've been transitioning into a person now that's sort of, it's the Jung's 4 stages, athlete, warrior, statesman, guru. And this was the difference between going from the warrior to the statesman. And that's a sort of a good framework to maybe think about where you are in your own life. And it told me that I needed to look for new strategies to feel successful or feel like I'm making a contribution.
And what was that framework again? Sorry.
The Jung's 4 archetypes or 4 life stages.
Yep.
Google it. It's all out there. There's just framework upon framework out there for this sort of thinking. And the statesman's now got to stop thinking about himself and he's got to think about others. And that's the key. So the difference is once you're pretty much fulfilled and got your life where you want it, all my kids have left home, they're all adults and so on and everything like that, well, then you've got nothing but surplus. So the great opportunity is to start realising that, well, what creates meaning is relationships and helping others where you can, which way that might be, without the need for adulation, pat on the back. I mean, everyone likes a pat on the back, of course, and that helps you get going, but you don't need that. You don't need to be paid really, other than, satisfying, your basic sort of lifestyle needs, which I've found out weren't that much. I went to Canada and went skiing and came home and I haven't been again. If I was a real megalomaniac, I would have gone every year and I'd be bragging about it. I just brag about the one time, obviously. But I know plenty of people that are on that hamster wheel, and do have to do that. And so they have to keep licking the ice cream. They have to keep finding ways to extract the coin out of people. And that's fine. And that's their journey. But I found my journey is now all about what can I do for others. So it's like, your cup runneth over, is the term. And, that's what I want to do and doing that in a creative way that sort of suits me. So,
yeah, really good. Quick plug of those people you're helping out at the moment then. Can we do that?
Yes. Well, I've done a bit of time recently with Up Tasmania, obviously, and I was really excited when Aaron mentioned he was looking for people to help join in with that and help with thinking and to move it forward, because it's just reflecting on my own life, just to segue into mental health. So when I worked in construction, I was, a bloke's bloke, and we used to really run a culture which was totally unhealthy by the standards now that we apply to ourselves. If you couldn't hack it, piss off, massive FaceTime, 50, 60 hours a week, and putting people, right through the cheese grater all the time. I was working in private sector, which is all about making a profit, for the bloke that owns the business sort of thing, and demanded a lot of performance out of everyone. And there's some colleagues that didn't survive that when I look back, and I think, oh, wow, I was perpetuating that culture. I was part of that culture. I was workaholic, obviously. That was all part and parcel of what you think creates success. This is the warrior mindset, by the way. That's part of what that mindset's all about. So when I said I got to that mid-40s and started to reflect, all of these things started to come back to me to think, well, we've got to, promote different ways to do things now. And we all know now that if you're not taking mental health into consideration in planning how work's going to be done, you're going to struggle to attract a quality workforce into, sustainably into the long term. So that directly affects viability. So hopefully it's changing, the culture's changing, and you guys are all part of that. And I'm excited to be alongside and say, well, here's my journey. Can I help in some way?
From the work that you're doing now, have you seen much of a change in construction? Because without saying what projects you're on, I know what they are, but Have you seen a bit of a shift from that bird's eye view now?
Yeah, I think with the awareness stage, still, I'm not sure how well we're applying things on the ground. We're at the, it's all about awareness, which isn't, our results aren't probably great yet in this space, but it starts at awareness. It's a cycle, isn't it? We've got to go through awareness, understanding, liking, action. They're the steps, and that's a process. So I look at like safety in construction. So when I first started my career, people didn't wear hard hats and jackets and fluoro jackets, and so now that's like safety's right in, and it's accepted from top to bottom, side to side. Everyone gets it, and that took about 10 years from when it first sort of turned up in the sort of the 90s, through into the 2000s. It took that long, and some parts of the industry were ahead of others, and that helped lead the charge. So applying the same sort of change process, culture change process to our approach to mental health, it'll be similar. There'll be wins. Someone will be out in front, and that'll help set the agenda, set the run rate for the rest of the industry, and they'll slowly it'll get to the point where the ones at the back of the bus will finally
They get dragged along.
finally get dragged along, and it's all accepted. And of course, because it's changed, there'll be a whole range of people that resist it. Yep. And the big change occurs, I think, is when the people who sign the checks say, with this, I want it to come with this. I want it to have these aspects in what we do. And I've seen a little bit of it. I've seen one of the clients I work for, had our regular Friday morning catch up on Teams, and they were sitting there in these sort of really brightly coloured fluoro sort of shirts, really colourful sort of patterned shirts, and they both had them on. I'm going, it's obviously casual Friday. What's going on, guys? Glad you asked. These shirts are here to invite a conversation about mental health. And that was, I'm forgetting the
Trademark.
Trademark.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were wearing these trademark shirts. And I went, you're joking, right? And they explained what it was all about. And well, that's fantastic. These guys are at least at the awareness stage of at least, okay, we're going to put something on, create conversations. How far are they down their implementation journey? Probably not very far, but they've taken the first step.
Gotta start somewhere.
Get the gratitude out and go, congratulations. Right, what's the next step, guys? What do we do next?
Where do we go next? From your point of view, obviously in this space, what direction would you take it in?
Have the second conversation.
Yeah.
So had the first conversation, so now have the next conversation and keep going from there. And don't be too impatient with getting results. It's where we are in the cycle. It's about changing mindsets. And as I said, that starts with awareness and some simple actions and things to keep raising awareness. And it will get there.
It's a big thing to change the direction of.
Correct.
So it's going to take a lot of small corrections to get it moving in the right way.
Yeah, I agree. But it's worth it. So it won't go away.
No, it's there now for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's complications given how much should a business invest in helping all their workers forward. Should they just be the initiators and then, all that stuff's then outsourced somewhere else. But the conversations at work, you can't take up the whole thing on work time, if you know what I mean, either. So that'll be an interesting one for sort of big businesses to implement and do.
Well, safety was exactly the same.
Yeah.
So safety costs was, safety costs. So that was the biggest barrier. But it's like, but not having it costs us more in tangible and intangible ways.
Yeah.
And the intangible ways are you can't calculate it because it's that big in terms of the impact on people's, confidence and relationships. And, when someone's injured at work, it's not good. It's obviously a traumatic event if it's super serious. And if it's a fatality, some people never recover from having to see a workmate have that occur in front of them. So eventually that all went, this is serious, isn't it? And it got there. Well, as we all know, we mental health, another version of that same thing. It's another version of safety. It's just mental rather than physical.
While we're on that, I think might sort of segue into let's talk a little bit about your mental health journey, mate. Like if you don't mind sharing, sort of, it is we say it's a mental health podcast. It's kind of sort of started to transition into just a men's health, given the few things that we've sort of spoken about over the past few weeks. But tell us a little bit about your mental health journey.
Yeah, well, totally ignored it for a good 20 years while I worked away.
Yeah.
It wasn't a factor. Like, it was something when I grew up, I have a European father, and it's like, oh, why would you admit that there's something wrong with you? You don't do that. That's weak. That's
a chink in your armour. Why would you do that?
That's a sign of weakness, and, you wouldn't do that. So, and then I actually subconsciously sought out bosses that were just like my father in the first part of my career, like hard taskmasters. My father owned his own business and was a bit of a workaholic, well, complete workaholic. And, I just did the same, thinking that was successful or the way to success. And I mean, I actually proved in one way that it is. But there was this point, as I mentioned earlier, when I just got to the top of what I thought I wanted to achieve, and it gave me all that time for pause and to think about it. As I said before, the construction industry was not a good place for mental health at all. So it wasn't good. And what I did when I was in my 40s, I rediscovered a whole pile of things that I'd done when I was much younger. So when I went to uni, which was really, really stressful, doing a civil engineering degree, they're trying to fail everybody in the first year and cut numbers in half and all this. It was really tough. I passed several exams by 1% and got through to the second year, I remember. And we sort of, the way we dealt with all that was to go on massive binges, once we'd finished exams. Do you imagine engineering school? The only people that used to out-drink us were the mining engineers, civil engineers. We used to have to do this pub golf where there was like 9 pubs lined up and they were all par 3, and if you drank more than 3, that was like going under, going up.
Yeah. No, you have to tell me more about this game later.
No one was ever declared a winner.
Take some notes.
Anyway, so that's a digression, but that just sort of shows what the culture is. It's like work hard, play hard, So when I had that time for reflection, I sort of so in those earlier days I had got into doing relaxation techniques. I actually used to do Tai Chi when I was about 19, 20 years old, which I found just amazing for stress control and, to help me focus. And so I retook up all of that in around about the mid-40s. I got right into yoga. I got right into exercise because I wanted to ski better, on that treadmill. And then I got into sort of yoga and relaxation as well. And it was like a big opening up and a real big sort of discovery of what had been lost that all those years ago. And just, really started a journey into what I'd call is abundance, where you just think that everything's going to happen, everything's catered for, all things will happen. You just have to sort of tune in with it. And it's sort of there. There's nothing really to worry about. There's nothing to be concerned about at all, other than tuning into that and then spreading that further. So, I've had I guess some extremes is how I would describe how my mental health has gone from being way down one path and then, oh, hang on, you don't have to do that, and then zooming into another path. I'm a bit more balanced these days. I sort of tend to do things to extreme. So,
and you've mentioned that when you got to 40, you had to take a time for reflection.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing that sort of I've seen in having a lot of conversations with people is usually they get somewhat forced into having those epiphanies in life where they need to actually think about themselves and where they're at. Was there a specific point or experience in your life that made you sort of think that you needed to have that reflection, or was it just something that progressively happened over time?
Thanks for that question, because I do need to reflect on it to give a coherent answer. But when I think about it, it's actually I had a lot of I kept having relationships, and I mean like in the workplace type relationships, which would, start, peak and end. And I found I wasn't really having enduring relationships. They were specific purpose, and then they would sort of come apart. Because I've been working for myself since 2004, so I'd come in, do a job, and then we'd sort of not stop getting on with each other. And it was my lack of sort of humility, I think, and expecting others to see the world the way I saw it. And of course, as a consultant, working for others, if you're not getting on, well, you just finish up where you're at and keep moving. And I felt a bit of a loss. I felt like I had more value to give people over the long term, and it wasn't really being expressed. So that was striking me as there's something about me that needs to change.
It's interesting. Like I've been working out at the local cement plant there for just on 15 years now, and it's interesting to see. We've probably recently had a bit of a consistent state of flux. We're getting a lot of people going and new people coming in, and it's interesting. You comment there around the persistent relationships has struck me because right across the Northwest Coast, the cement works has been known as a retirement village. Like you go there and you stay there, and this state of flux now, where we're seeing people going, that's been very different for me, and I'm sort of struggling to sort of I need to keep in contact with these people that are going because I really enjoy having those relationships with them.
Yeah,
and, it's one of those things I've got to be starting to work on now. Yeah, maintaining that contact.
I think that's got me a bit too. I had a mate call me up from the forces the other day that I hadn't heard from in ages, and we had 20 minutes on the phone felt like one. Like it was amazing. And now that you've said that, I'm like, that happened to us week in, week out. That's what we went through. Blokes in and out the door. It was like just a revolving door. But now that you've mentioned and brought it up, it's like, oh, yeah, I've been to that. Yeah. It's a stinker, really, in a way. Like it is hard.
It's all about relationships. That's one thing I learned. And I'm lucky because I've actually got a lot of long-term relationships. In fact, last weekend I was in Adelaide at a friend's 50th, and that's was my friend's partner, and that friend I've had since I was 12, and we're still as tight as, and we don't have to talk for a year. So I guess it's a balance there where I could see I had all these other longer term relationships, but it didn't seem the value didn't keep going in some places. But that was about me expecting others to do or to see things how I see them. So the other thing I really learned is I'm actually pretty unique. I've got a unique set of experiences, and that you can't expect others that are going to click on to things like, you've already seen it, but you have to guide others to what it is that you're seeing, and just not have that, just trust the process and allow them their time, and they're on their journey too,
It's this point at the podcast where we normally get people to reflect on some advice that they might have for their past selves. So what pieces of advice would you have if you could talk to younger Martin?
I reflected on this afternoon. What was I going to pick on? And I think for me, it's taken a long time to understand what humility is. So I think I was pretty privileged. I'm a tall guy, got dark hair, and Caucasian, so I can see that, I got certain advantages that others might not have got. And I think my career would have, and my own ability to be a decent human would have been better if in my sort of late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, around there, I actually went and did some volunteering work with maybe people less fortunate than what I was. I really sort of missed that picture of what else is happening, to people in the world, which is, obviously it's absolutely everywhere if you've got the eyes to see it. And, if anyone had suggested to me back then, what would be really good for you to go would do some volunteering work to make you a more rounded person, I would have just told them to piss off. That's for losers.
Yeah.
Haven't got time for that. Do my own thing.
Why would I want to hang around with people who are obviously losers? It would have been my attitude back then, but now it's like really, really clear how that would have rounded me as a person a lot. And maybe when it just explained about how I'd noticed those relationships hadn't been as good or had been shorter than what they could have been, I might have actually had some more ability or, capabilities to see more into people rather than just being all about me. So yeah, that's what I think. And, but I'm not disappointed. That's just how life's rolled along. And I've still got heaps of opportunity to fulfill that, now moving forward in my life anyway. So
thank you very much, mate. I think the insights that you've been able to share and the wisdom that you've shared with us all has been really invaluable, and I thank you. Thanks very much for coming on. I do want to just say very quickly, if there's been anything that may have been triggering to those at home, please call Lifeline 13 11 14 or contact your local GP. Other than that, it would be really helpful to us if you could subscribe if you're on YouTube, send us a like, and if there's anything that you would like us to touch on in the future, please pop a comment below. If you're listening on the podcast, please feel free to reach out at hello@manuptaz.com.au. Otherwise, thanks very much, everyone. Take care. Cheers, Martin. Thank you.
Thanks,
See you all in the next one.
Cheers.
Thanks, Martin.
Cheers.